This is a special report.
Mayor de Blasio is giving an update on the coronavirus pandemic in New York City. Let's listen in.
I try to really focus on that because it's an extraordinary story of the goodness of this city, the honor, the decency of the people of this city. And we only wish that that goodness, that decency were reflected in the way our national government sees this struggle here in New York City and understands what our people are going through. We only ask that people in Washington show a little respect for the people in New York City who have borne the brunt of this crisis, who have been living in the epicenter of a national dilemma, a crisis we've never seen before, a pandemic, the worst healthcare crisis in 100 years. There are so many ways I could describe it, but we all know what's going on. And anyone with a heart and soul would show respect and appreciation for the people in New York City, for our first responders, our healthcare heroes, the everyday people in New York City who have fought through this and now deserve some help to get back on our feet so we can move forward. We didn't ask for this disease. It came from far away, but it has knocked us back, no fault of our own, and yet we have fought back. All we want is respect and support and a sense that we're all in this together, but that's not what we're seeing coming from the White House. This morning, I woke up to this. President of the United States, a former New Yorker who seems to enjoy stabbing his hometown in the back, talking about no bailout for New York. What kind of human being sees the suffering here and decides that people in New York City don't deserve help? What kind of person does that? Well, I'll tell you something. Every day, President Trump resembles more and more Herbert Hoover, the president who ignored the Great Depression, who didn't care to put America back on its feet, who has been now remembered in history as someone who failed at the most basic responsibility, which is to protect the people he serves. President Trump wasn't there for us when we needed the testing to stop this horrible disease, and now he's talking about not helping us in our hour of need. He says in this interview he's not inclined to do bailouts. He gave a $58 billion bailout to the airline industry. A few years ago, he gave a $1.5 trillion bailout to big corporations and the wealthy. So who is he kidding? He's not inclined to do bailouts now. That means he's not inclined to help firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, police officers, doctors, nurses, healthcare workers, teachers, sanitation workers, all the people who are depending right now on the federal government stepping up and making New York City and New York State and so many other cities and states whole, so we can get back to business, so we can get back on our feet, so we can lead the recovery. So right there, he says he's not inclined to do bailouts. He's a pure hypocrite, given how much money he's put in the hands of the corporations and the wealthy already. He says then it's not fair to the Republicans because all the states that need help are run by Democrats. So now he is putting partisanship ahead of the needs of the nation. You know, I referenced Herbert Hoover a moment ago. Even Herbert Hoover in his worst moments didn't try and pit Americans against Americans, one part of the country against another. In a crisis, a leader is supposed to bring us together. The president is doing is playing politics while people are suffering. He says it right out loud there. The states that need help, run by Democrats. Who cares who runs the states? The people need help. They're Americans who need help right now. Do you not care about that firefighter, that EMT, that paramedic, that police officer, that healthcare worker because they live in a state run by a Democrat or a city run by a Democrat? Does that make them less American in your view, Mr. President? It's absolutely unacceptable. We've never seen anything like it, the entire history of this republic. And people won't stand for it because we need help. We need help because people have been fighting and suffering, and all we're asking to do is get back on our feet so we can contribute to this national recovery. There's not going to be a national recovery without New York City and New York State and cities and states all around the country that have been hit so hard. Then he says, Florida is doing phenomenal. Texas is doing phenomenal. Midwest is fantastic. Okay, so Texas. Here's a letter signed by 100 mayors in Texas, Republican and Democrat both, talking about how their cities are suffering, how they need help or they will not be able to serve their people. They will not be able to provide basic services. They will not be able to get back on their feet. From the great state of Texas right here. He says the Midwest is fantastic. How about this headline from the Associated Press? Coronavirus cuts deep scars through meatpacking cities in the Midwest. Crisis growing in Iowa and other states. I don't know what country he's living in, but here in the United States of America, people are hurting. And it doesn't matter what state they're in. It doesn't matter if it's red or blue. It doesn't matter who they are. They're hurting and they need the help of their government. And now we have the President of the United States trying to back away from his responsibilities. Look, we cannot allow this to happen, and we won't. We're not going to allow one man to stand in the way of what the people of this city, this state, this nation need. The people rule here. The people will not stand for a government that turns its back on those who have fought heroically through this pandemic and are being looked at with great respect all over the country. You know, I talked to the president about Elmhurst Hospital, and he expressed sympathy, expressed admiration for the healthcare workers. He said, oh, I grew up in that area, Queens. Well, Mr. President, if you respect those healthcare workers, and don't walk away from them, help them, because those very same people who have fought this heroic battle are now the people who don't know if they're going to have a job in the future because there's no money left. The only place that we can get the help we need to get back on our feet is the federal government. Mr. President, be as kind and decent to those healthcare workers as you were to the airline industry and the wealthy and the corporations. That's what we're asking. One standard for this whole country. Doesn't matter which state, doesn't matter red or blue. It just matters that Americans need help, and they need it now. Let me bring you back right here. And even though we've been through so much together, you know what? I've really admired and appreciated that the people of this city want to do things the right way in this crisis. They want to get it right once, the first time. We are being guided here in this city by the facts. We're being guided by the data, by the science. And every day I'm going over with you, with everyone, those indicators that tell us what's happening. And you could look at them as just numbers, but I always remind you behind those numbers are human beings and families in this city. When those numbers go down, it means something is happening, and it means you're the reason why it happened, because you're doing the right thing to make it happen. This is a story of New York City coming together in common cause. And the numbers tell you something you should be very proud of. Daily admissions for COVID-19 in our hospitals down below 100 a day now. Still too many, but tremendous progress. Fewer and fewer New Yorkers fighting for their lives in our intensive care units in our public hospitals. The percentage of people testing positive generally going down, not every single day, but overall going down and going down a lot. You did that. You achieved it. You get the credit. And I'm sure you're proud of it. I want you to feel the pride that causes you to want to finish this fight strong and take the next step. So, as we keep fighting that fight, we don't forget for a moment, because we're a decent city, a compassionate city, we don't forget for a moment how many people are hurting right now. We're still not out of it. People are hurting. How many people have been hurt? How many families have lost a loved one or are dealing with the disease right now? How many families are dealing with the devastating impact of this crisis on their livelihoods? And you see constantly the dominoes falling in this crisis. And it's affecting, in one way or another, millions of us. People who literally have to ask, who maybe never asked the question before in their life, where am I going to get my next meal? People who are struggling still to get that unemployment check because the job's not there. People are worried that their apartment may be gone. They're worried about literally how they're going to keep a roof over the head of their family. People own a small business and they're worried they won't be able to get it back on its feet. That's what's happening to so many people. And while we're fighting for fairness and decency and justice in Washington, we're helping our people right now. With all those problems, every single one I just mentioned that a family may face, where do people turn? A lot of times they turn right here to their city government, and the number one way people do that is by calling 311. And 311 was created to make it easier for people to get what they deserve, to get the information, to get the support, get the services. And throughout its history, a lot of good has been done because of 311. It's worked pretty well. And when you see our enforcement agents go out to address a problem, if you see a line at a supermarket that needs to be spread out, or a problem in a community, that call to 311 sparks action, whether it's NYPD or the Parks Department or the Department for the Aging getting someone a meal, whatever it is. It is the fact that a New Yorker can pick up the phone and know that something can happen and will happen. That's the power of 311. But 311, that system we depend on, has gone through an undeniable strain in these last weeks. Before this crisis, a typical day was 55,000 calls. That's a lot of calls. At the peak in April, nearly 200,000 calls a day, 4 times as many calls. And that just exploded in a matter of weeks. 311 team did their best, but it's been clear they need a lot more help, and now we're going to give them the help that they need to really expand what they do so more and more New Yorkers can get help and get it quickly. So we have a 3-part action plan to add support to 311 immediately. 1, we've hired reinforcement call takers. This one made all the sense in the world. So many calls, more people need to take them. 285 more call takers have been added in the last 2 weeks. 150 are NYPD cadets. What a great training for them in how to serve and help people in the city. Devoted young people ready to serve people and get them answers, get them help. 120 temporary hires, 65% of whom speak Spanish, and that's crucial in this crisis. So many folks who speak Spanish needing help and needing that reassuring voice on the other end of the line. Also, 15 FDNY employees have stepped up to help reinforce 311. And now we've added 4 new call centers because we needed more capacity. Now, 311 got a lot done before the crisis, but the crisis demanded a different mindset. So we brought in leaders from the NYPD and the FDNY to really strengthen the approach at 311, to think not just about responding, but about actually preventing problems, preventing emergencies. When someone needs food, if they don't get food, there's an emergency that's going to happen eventually. If someone has COVID symptoms, we don't know yet if that means they have the disease, but we do know it's a danger that must be addressed immediately. You talk about urgency, you talk about focus, you talk about getting things done, you're talking about the NYPD and the FDNY. So we've brought in a leadership group of senior officers from PD and FD, and they're bringing some very important practices with them, like a morning roll call, where they get everyone together and talk about what is coming in the day ahead, what they're seeing, what happened on the last shift, what are the new topics they have to address, how they can get ahead of things proactively. Also, a reliance on data and learning from the data. 311 has some great data scientists. The NYPD and the FDNY have really perfected the use of data to serve people better. So they're bringing in that expertise to ensure if they see a spike in calls at a certain hour, they see a certain problem that needs to be addressed, they're shifting resources, shifting personnel to that problem. They're also creating an express lane. And the express lane idea is if you're calling with something related to COVID-19, if you're calling with a need for food, something as urgent as that goes to the front of the line, gets addressed immediately. The goal here is to have little or no wait time for people who are calling about anything related to this crisis in English or Spanish. And of course, we serve people in many other languages as well. So what's happening now at 311 is something very different to deal with a crisis we've never experienced before. I want to thank everyone at 311 for the amazing work you do, and you've been strong during this crisis. I want to thank the NYPD and the FDNY for stepping in and bringing your expertise. Folks who know how to deal with emergencies and challenges better than anyone else on earth to make 311 much stronger, much faster, able to serve much better. This is something really important. It's going to help hundreds of thousands of New Yorkers right away. Now, one example. I told several times, I've told you about the importance of our New York City small businesses getting that federal loan program, getting the opportunity to tap into that, because the Paycheck Protection Program, it's a good thing, but what we found was the first round, a lot of money went to businesses that weren't the most needy. The second round, the money's going fast. We want to make sure that every New York City small business that needs those loans and they can turn into grants eventually, that every small business that needs them applied. Remember, this newest round, $310 billion for small businesses. And a special thank you again to our Senator Chuck Schumer, Congress member Nydia Velázquez, the chair of the House Small Businesses Committee, Speaker Nancy Pelosi. They all fought hard to make sure there was more money actually for small businesses, every kind of small business in every kind of community. But now we need our small businesses to take advantage of it. You can apply. It's first come, first served. So apply quickly if you have not. Money could run out in the course of this week, so please apply immediately. Go to the federal website, Small Business Administration, SBA.gov. But the reason I bring it up now is because if you need help and you're struggling with that application, you need answers, you need support, call 311. And our small business team will help you to complete that application and get it in immediately. There are a lot of ways 311 can help, and that's a great example. Let's help our small businesses get back on their feet. So anyone out there, if you own a small business or you know anyone who does, tell them right away, fill out that application. If they need help, call 311. Now, I'm going to go to a matter that really deserves attention. And I want to tell you what happened here just in the last few days. And if you're a parent, I want you to listen carefully in particular. I made it a point, since we're all in this together in this city, we're all working together to protect people. When something is raised by our colleagues in the media that points out something we all need to know about or something that needs to be addressed, I'm trying to remember to say thank you. So I want to thank Melissa Russo, who raised an important issue about a problem we're starting to see, and we take it very seriously. And in general, we know, as we've dealt with the coronavirus, that we have not seen the same kind of impact on young people that we see on older people, particularly much older people. But something's happened in the last few days that's beginning to concern our health department. And again, parents, pay attention, because it does involve our children. And I say that as a parent myself. I take this seriously. Even a few days ago, we were not seeing much incidence, but now we are. 15 cases in New York City now we've identified. And that is enough for sure to say, even though it's uncommon compared to the hundreds of thousands of people who have contracted this disease, is still causing us concern. So this particular condition, even though it's rare, here are the symptoms. And again, this affects children. Fever, rash, abdominal pain, and vomiting. If your children are experiencing, any child is experiencing these symptoms, particularly in combination, call your doctor right away. We want to make sure that if a child is dealing with this reality, they get the support that they need. We will have, in a few minutes, an opportunity to hear from our healthcare leaders who can explain in more detail. But again, when we see something, we want to identify it and tell the public about it. This is something that's causing concern. I want to make sure all New Yorkers are aware. And we've put out a health alert letting healthcare providers know that if they see incidents of this new condition, that we want to make sure it's reported immediately to our health department so we can identify what's going on, how extensive it is, and deal with it. Now, we all know the way forward is all about testing. And we know there's different kinds of tests, different kinds of approaches, but every test of every kind contributes to the solution. There's still not enough testing available. There's still not enough of the diagnostic testing that we particularly need. There's still not enough lab capacity. The federal government is still missing in action when it comes to testing. But we do have some good news today, talked about a few days ago, and this is a step forward. And I do want to give credit when the federal government does something that helps us, and I've done that throughout this crisis. On the question of antibody testing, I told you a few days back we have been in conversations over the last few weeks with the Department of Health and Human Services and with the Centers for Disease Control. The focus was on antibody testing on a widespread level for our first responders and our healthcare workers. Last night, I spoke with Admiral Brett Giroir, who is the head of the U.S. Public Health Service and Assistant Secretary at HHS, my apology, HHS. And he was abundantly clear the federal government is ready to move with antibody testing for the heroes here in New York City. Any first responder or healthcare worker who wants to take advantage of it, it will be made available for free. This initiative will be up and running by next week, maybe even sooner, but certainly by next week. The goal is to test 140,000 of our heroes, and this testing will be done at hospitals, firehouses, police stations, and correction facilities. So this is very, very important. It's going to give us much more ability to let all of our heroes know what's happened in terms of exposure to this disease in their own lives. It's going to be really helpful in terms of finding more donors for the plasma treatments that we're very hopeful about. It's going to give a lot of information to the federal government and to us about what's happening out there with this disease that's going to help us fight this disease further. So this is a step in the right direction for sure. Now, a few more things before I conclude. It's very, very important while we're fighting this battle to express our thanks for the people who've really stepped up. And those thank yous, I think, are even more important in the middle of a crisis where people are working so hard. So a couple of different things we honor each year happen to fall today and this week. And let's take time to thank the people we know who serve us so well, starting with Teacher Appreciation Day. Our educators have done an amazing job. They've never been asked to do anything like online learning, distance learning on a vast scale. They've done it really well. The dedication's been outstanding. Our educators are going out of their way to reach kids, reach parents, help them keep learning no matter what. Any educator in your life, please take the time to thank them today and this week because they certainly deserve it. They've done something remarkable. Today is also Building Service Worker Day. Now, talk about unsung heroes. The doormen and the doorwomen, the porters, the cleaners, the security officers, the folks who keep buildings running. Every kind of building, every place that's functioning right now that's part of fighting back this disease, every place that people live that has a staff that makes sure the building keeps running, everything we depend on every day in this city. In peacetime and wartime, these are unsung heroes who are there for us and keep things running. Take an opportunity today to thank them. They don't get the thanks they deserve, but what would we do without them? The city wouldn't work without them. Let's thank them today. Special thank you to our colleagues in labor, 32BJ, SEIU, all over New York City for the amazing work you're doing in this crisis. And yesterday, and this we should be thankful for every day, but yesterday was International Firefighters Day. I went to go meet with EMTs and paramedics at EMS Station 4 on the Lower East Side yesterday. Our EMTs, our paramedics, our firefighters, all part of the FDNY family. They've been amazing. They've dealt with things that no one's ever seen before. They have saved so many lives. They have stood firm, absolutely made us proud in this crisis, keep making us proud. We should be thankful for them all the time, but let's give a special thank you to them this week. Okay, the part of this press conference that each day we all look forward to, the daily indicators to know where we're going. Yesterday, great day. Today, a little less great. Still some good news. We need it to get better to fully take the next steps. So, 3 indicators. First one, daily number of people admitted to hospitals for suspected COVID-19. That is down. That is good, from 88 to 75. Think about that for a moment. 75 people admitted to hospitals for suspected COVID-19. That is a sea change from where we were a few weeks ago. That's fantastic. Daily number of people in our ICUs across our public hospitals for suspected COVID-19 down from 632 to 596. Great news. That still means there's almost 600 people right now fighting for their lives in those ICUs. So good, important news, but with something that reminds us the battle still rages for so many. Here's the one I don't like. The percentage of people tested citywide positive for COVID-19 up from 17% to 22%. We know each day can vary for a variety of reasons, but the reason we want all 3 to go down at once is that tells us we're on a solid, consistent path, and that's what leads us to be able to start loosening up. Didn't have the day we needed today, but overall we're making progress. Let's keep fighting. Let's keep fighting to bring these numbers down consistently and take that big next step forward. So, before I say a few words in Spanish, I just want to come back to what I started with. This is just about basic humanity and decency. Anyone watching has seen the pain that New York City has experienced. Anyone watching has seen the heroism of so many New Yorkers. Anyone watching with a heart and soul would say, I want to help those people, because they've done something so good, so decent. That's all we're asking of our federal government. We're just asking the President of the United States to act like the President of the United States and care, actually care about the people of this city, regardless of politics. Care about the people of the city, like any president should, regardless of where they come from. But you'd think a president who grew up here might have a special feeling for this place, might go out of his way to help his hometown. I'll give him another chance to show that there's a beating heart there, but these comments today show me something very cold and very, very unfair towards the people he grew up around. The people gave him every opportunity in his life. So, Mr. President, you have a chance to atone for what you said here. You have a chance to get it right. Remember your hometown, and remember every hometown in America. Just lend a helping hand so people can get back on their feet once and for all. A few words in Spanish.
You've been listening to Mayor de Blasio give an update on the coronavirus outbreak in New York City. We're now going to return to regularly scheduled programming here on CBS 2. For extended local coverage, stick with our streaming service, CBSN New York. I'm Chris Raggi.
This has been a special report.